This video is brought to you by Sailrite. Introducing the Hatch Canopy Kit. Open up your hatch and allow the air to flow through even when it rains with a Hatch Canopy Kit from Sailrite. This is an easy-to-sew kit which creates a canopy wind scoop which channels air into the cabin below via your hatch, yet protects the opening from rain and sun. Open up the hatch and you'll see the hatch canopy catches the air via the scoop and channels it through the cabin below. The canopy utilizes a spring batten sewn into a pocket along the front edge. By adjusting the length of the aluminum pole shorter, the spring batten creates a high arc wind scoop which allows maximum airflow and also sheds rainwater and dew moisture off the top of the canopy. Extend the pole to create a lower arch which blocks more inclement weather but still allows needed ventilation to the cabin. This canopy attaches at 3 points. At the front, a line is secured around the forestay wire or the furled sail as shown here, or you can also attach it to the bow pulpit. To tension the canopy, we're using the mini rope tie, which is not included in the kit. An adjustable webbing strap with buckle is also included in the kit for those attaching around a furled sail to help protect it. Stabilizing lines included at the rear are secured to stanchions or shrouds. The hatch canopy we showed previously was for a smaller vessel, a Seaward 24. You want to take some measurements to determine the width and the length of your hatch canopy. It can obviously be much larger than the one shown here. Generally, you want it large enough to protect the hatch from the elements, and you want it small enough that you can pass by it easily. After taking measurements on your boat to determine the finished size, you need to add 4 inches to that desired finished width measurement for hems, and you need to add 5 inches to the length measurement for a hem on one side and a pocket on the other for the batten. After cutting the fabric blank to the appropriate size that you desire, we'll take the batten that's included in the kit and use it to create a hollow along the 2 sides and the trailing edge. Creating approximately a 1-inch hollow on the sides and the trailing edge will help to provide support for those sides. This is obviously the same principle as in a Genoa or a jib sail. The hollow on the leech helps to prevent flutter. I'm using a few of my kids to help hold the batten so that I can draw the line nice and evenly on the side of the hatch canopy. Now I'm using my knee here to hold the batten in place as I finish the line because this batten was a little bit on the short side. And here at the trailing edge we'll create approximately another 1-inch hollow. On the opposite side, we won't use the batten to create the hollow there. We'll first cut the hollow out of the side, then we'll fold the panel in half and trace along the edge of the fabric to create the hollow on the opposite side. The Surlast material can be cut with shears. Now we'll cut the hollow out at the trailing edge of the hatch canopy. Once that's done, fold the material in half and then trace along the edge of the hollow we created earlier. We'll then unfold it and cut that side as well. We will not make a hollow at the front or forward edge of the hatch canopy because there we'll insert a sleeve for the stiffening batten. Now we'll mark each of the edges. This is the rear and these are the sides so that we do not get confused. Surlast fabric has a coating on the bottom side, so you want to check the fabric thoroughly. It'll be a little bit hard to tell here in the video, but the coating is the little bit of the shiny side and that faces down. So remember that fact when working with Surlast fabric. We'll be creating a double hem along the sides, and I'm using basting tape, part number 129 for canvas, to apply a double-sided tape to the edge. This double-sided tape will help hold our hem in place while we take it to the sewing machine and sew it. We're peeling off the transfer paper, revealing the glue, and then we'll create approximately a 1-inch hem. Once that hem is basted down, we'll apply double-sided tape along the trailing edge, the folded edge I should call it, and we'll do that same procedure. We'll then fold that over approximately an inch as well. This takes up 2 inches along the one side. We'll do that exact same procedure to the opposite side as well. We'll be using the Sailrite LS1 sewing machine to sew this hem, and we're going to use the magnetic guide to help guide our stitches. The magnetic guide acts the same way as a fence on a table saw. We'll sew a straight stitch along the inside edge of that double hem, approximately a 1/16 of an inch away from the fold. We want to sew approximately a 6mm straight stitch, and do check the opposite side of the fabric to be sure your tension is set appropriately. Here's a close-up shot of the magnetic guide working. You can see it makes this job nice and easy. You'll want to create a double hem on the rear portion of the canopy and also the opposite side of the canopy. We'll not show all of that here. We're building our hatch canopy to the maximum size of 56-inch width and 67-inch length, but yours may be smaller. However, you can see here in the video, one way of working with a canopy or a project that is this large is to actually fold the project up and then unfold it as you need to. That way you can work on a small table as we are here. Because there's a slight hollow built into the sides and the trailing edge, the corners may not come out completely flush. You can either trim those off or ignore them. It won't make any difference in the end results. When we create a double hem, we like to put another stitch on the outer edge of our hem. This kind of creates a finished look and helps the hem to look a little bit nicer. So we'll position this stitch approximately a 1/16 inch away from the folded edge, and so thus we get 2 stitches down each hem. This is not necessary, but it definitely creates a more finished looking project. A double hem has been created on the 2 sides and the trailing edge. Now we'll concentrate at the head of the hatch canopy. We'll use the double-sided tape and baste it at the top, and then peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue, and we'll create approximately a 1/2 inch hem here. The top edge will not have a double hem, but instead will have a sleeve, and that sleeve will be used to insert a spring batten, which will be basically sewn into the pocket. Once the 1/2 inch hem is created and basted, we'll use a ruler and mark down 2.5 inches from the folded edge, and we'll mark it with a pencil. We'll then line up our yardstick along those lines and draw a straight line. This line will be used as a reference to create the appropriate size sleeve for the spring batten. This is all being done at the top edge. We'll take our double-sided tape or seam stick and baste it above the line. Peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue. Then we'll take our opposite end and fold it so that it matches up with that line that we drew earlier. This creates a sleeve. One of the nice things about using double-sided tape is that if you don't like the way it's come out, you can always peel it back up again and reapply it. We'll take that top edge over to the sewing machine and sew approximately a 1/16 inch away from the inner folded edge of the fabric. Be sure to reverse at the beginning and the end of all of your stitches. That locks the stitch in place. If you don't have the magnetic guide, you can always use masking tape and tape it on the bed of your sewing machine and use that to help guide your work. When we get to the other end, be sure to reverse there as well. Divide the total width measurement across the top by 3 using a calculator, then mark a spot at each one of those positions on that sleeve that we just created. At each one of these marks, we're going to create a large loop of webbing, and this loop of webbing will be created on both sides at the top, and we'll attach a line to tension the forward section of our hatch canopy. We'll now take the 1-inch polyester webbing that's included in the kit, and we'll use a Hotknife to cut it. we'll cut it to 3 foot each leg. We'll have 2 legs that are 3 foot long. For smaller hatch canopies, you may want to cut it down to about 2 foot. There are no hard, fast rules here, but if you have a small boat like our Seaward 24 that we showed previously, we use 2 foot of webbing at each one of these locations instead of 3. Right now we're going to use a 3 foot leg. We're attaching double-sided tape on top of each one of those marks that we marked on the fabric. The 2 marks in the center and the 2 marks on the very end. I like to always rip the double-sided tape with my fingers because that makes it easier to peel off the transfer paper. Some customers prefer using scissors, but it's a little bit more difficult to peel off the paper if you use scissors. At each one of those locations, we'll install the polyester webbing to the back side. The back side is the side that has the hems facing up. We're going to just apply it so that it's even with the trailing edge of that sleeve we created at the top edge. We'll sew along the trailing edge of the webbing, reversing several times to lock it in place. We're just going to sew a straight stitch along this bottom edge. Do not sew over the end of the sleeve here because we'll be inserting the spring batten in there. Now we'll take the length of webbing, this one's 3 foot long, and we'll make sure that it's facing the same direction, and we'll attach it to the next mark, which is approximately 18.5 inches away on our application. And we'll do that same procedure again at this position. Now that that leg's attached, we'll take our second leg of webbing and do the same thing to the other side. This is the top edge. We'll not show this whole procedure because we just showed it with the opposite side. We'll now run a row of stitches along the top edge of that sleeve, and we'll be sure to run over the webbing and reverse over the webbing several times to again secure it into position nice and tight. So now we'll do some reversing right over top of each one of those 4 positions where the webbing rests. Keep your stitch nice and straight as you go along this edge, and I'm not using the magnetic guide here, but rather I'm using one of the feet as a guide to keep that stitch nice and straight. And here we are coming to the end. Here's a close-up. And the bottom side. Now that sleeve is finished, we'll take our batten that's included in the kit. This is a 5/8 inch protruded batten, and we'll mark it to the appropriate length. You get plenty of batten in the kit. In fact, this batten is a little bit shorter than what comes in the kit. And we'll mark it so that we can leave enough room that we can sew it into the sleeve or pocket. So you want it about 1/2 inch away from the edge of your finished project, and it can be easily cut with a hacksaw. Before we install the batten in the sleeve, we'll sew one of the ends shut. Doesn't really matter which end we sew shut, but we just want to sew it with a few forward stitches and reverse stitches, being sure that it's securely closed. We'll now insert the 5/8 inch protruded batten. or spring batten into the sleeve. We will not install any end caps. There's no need for that because the batten really doesn't move much, and we should have plenty of stitches to help hold it in place. The Surlast material is very abrasion resistant. When you come to the opposite end, be sure the batten is not coming against your hems that you created earlier.
Still got some play to go, so we're gonna
the batten is running into one of the hems, so we're going to work it a little bit here so that we get it past the hem. Once it's not impeding with the hem, we'll use our screwdriver and push it in a little bit deeper. There we go. Now we have enough room to sew it with the sewing machine. If your batten is too long, you can always take it out and recut it to size. Be sure to reverse and forward several times here. The spring batten is now installed. We'll need to cut 2 small lengths of webbing that'll be used for loops at the trailing edge of the hatch canopy. These are cut approximately 4 inches in length. If you don't have a Hotknife, you could use a wood-burning tool, soldering gun, or you can cut it with shears and use a lighter. Be careful. Once those are cut to size, we'll go to the bottom trailing edge of the hatch cover, and we want to install these to the bottom side. So this is the underside, and we're going to just apply the double-sided tape again to just hold everything in place. It just makes things a little bit easier. Then we're going to create a loop of webbing here, lining it up with the bottom edge of the 1-inch hem that we created earlier. We'll take that to the sewing machine and we'll sew a straight stitch along the bottom edge and also that top edge. Again, always be sure to reverse and forward several times to secure the webbing tightly in place. Now we'll sew it along the top edge. This will create a spot for us to run our line through so that we can draw the trailing edge of the hatch canopy tight. We'll do that to the other side of this trailing edge. We will not show that. You can see that little flap of fabric sticking out. It's no big deal, so don't worry about having to trim it. That should give us enough access to put our line through. We'll now take the leech line, the short length of line that's included in the kit, and we'll cut it to approximately 12 inches to 18 inches. This line will be used to tie in our adjustable pole. The adjustable pole is used to create a scoop at the top of our canopy. We'll be securing it to the forward edge of the hatch canopy, right over the top of that webbing that we installed on the ends. We'll find the center position of the leech line that we just cut to approximately 18 inches in length, and we'll sew several stitches over the top of it just in the center position. So sew approximately a ½ inch of this webbing at the center position, no longer than a ½ inch at this position, forwarding and reversing several times to be sure that it's secured in position. You want to be careful to sew directly on top of the leech line. If you have trouble sewing it with your sewing machine, then you may want to do it with a hand needle and some pre-waxed twine. Hopefully your sewing machine can handle this. This is a lot of thicknesses here at the corner. I apologize for the shaky camera. Ian's my son, and he's doing this for the first time. He's doing a pretty good job, but occasionally he shakes a little bit. Alright, that should be plenty of line to tie in our adjustable pole. If it's too long, you can always use a Hotknife and cut it shorter. Now we'll do the same thing to the opposite side at the top of the hatch canopy. We have not yet attached the adjustable pole, but I wanted to show you that all you need to do now to store this is just to simply roll it up, and it doesn't take up much space. We'll now show you how to make the adjustable pole from your 2 aluminum pieces of tubing. The kit will come with 2 tubes, one that's 7/8 inch and it's 3 foot long, and one that is 3/4 inch length and it is 2 foot long. You may need to cut them to size according to how wide you made your hatch canopy. The larger 7/8 inch size tubing should be cut so that it's 2/3 of the total width measurement. The 3/4 inch tubing should be cut so that it leaves approximately a 2-inch tail inside the larger tubing when it's extended to its maximum length. There are 2 nylon internal eye ends, one that's obviously for the larger and one for the smaller tubing. You can install those on the end, don't secure them in place yet, and use those as a guide to make sure that you have enough tubing and you've cut it to the appropriate size or length. You can use a hacksaw to cut the tubing. As you can see here, with the eye ends installed, we have at least 2 inches of the smaller tube inside the larger tube. Now we're going to put a mark on the larger tube, but more importantly, a mark on the smaller tube to indicate where the ball spring will be inserted. Now ignore that mark. Now we want to take the tubing, the smaller tubing, and compress it to its smallest length, so almost all the way to the end, minus a 1/2 inch or so. We'll stop there. Now on the smaller tubing where that mark is, we want to transfer a mark to the larger tubing. That's the furthest mark for the furthest hole on the large tubing that will determine the shortest length that this adjustable tubing can go down to. The marks between the first and last mark are for more hole positions which allow the pipe to be adjusted to other lengths. Using a 1/4 inch drill bit, we'll now drill each one of those holes out, and we also need to ream the hole out because the ball spring is a little bit larger than a 1/4 inch. If you're using a 1/4 inch drill bit, you could use a larger drill bit in lieu of that. Then we'll insert this ball spring into the smallest tubing, and we'll use a screwdriver or tool to push the ball spring into position. Be careful not to twist the ball spring as you push it into this 3/4 inch tubing. As long as you get the ball close to the hole, it'll fall right into the hole. And that's how it works. Nicely. Now we need to make holes in the larger tubing. This is the 7/8 inch tubing. And again, we're using a 1/4 inch bit, and we're being sure to ream it out a little bit so it's a little bit larger than a 1/4 inch. We'll continue to drill out for each one of the marks we placed on the larger tubing. And here's the last one. Make sure you knock out all of the fragments from the aluminum tubing, and we're ready to insert the smaller tube inside. Alright, it works well. It's a good idea to buff out any burrs that were created by using the hacksaw so the 2 pieces of tubing slide nicely without any obstructions. We'll now install the eye ends. I like to install the eye ends so that the hole of the eye end is facing along with the holes that we created in the tubing. We'll use a very small drill bit that just allows us to insert the screws that are included. These are stainless steel screws, and just screw it right into the nylon eye end, right through the tubing. Whoops, I left the screwdriver slip a little bit. Do that to the other end as well. We didn't show that. We'll then take it to the canopy, and we'll use that leech line that we sewed on to the end and secure it with a knot on one end and also the opposite end. And that's all there is to it. Now all we need to do is install it on the boat. Remember, this is the largest size that you can have. We're not going to install this large one, but yet a smaller one that we made previously. We'll be attaching a length of line that is included in the kit at the trailing edge where you secured those webbing loops, and we'll use the Bowline knot to tie the length of line to those loops. We'll do that at the trailing edge, and we'll also do that at the forward edge. We'll take it to the boat before we cut the line so that we can be sure that we're cutting it to the appropriate length. We'll attach it at the shrouds here. I'm attaching it to the two shrouds to keep from having the line ride up. If it were just attached to one, it would have a tendency to ride up. Your boat may have other options where you can attach the line to keep it from riding up. Once the 2 points at the rear are attached, you can cut the line to size if you have not done so already. The line that we'll use for the forward portion of the canopy, we're going to utilize the mini rope tie, which is not included in the kit, but this rope tie gives you the option of tensioning the tarp easily. So that's how you attach the one length of line into the mini rope tie. Since our sail is furled, we utilize the strap that's included in the kit. We've made the strap with the buckle so it's adjustable, and then we'll attach the longer length of line to the mini rope tie. We need to show you how to make this strap. You need a length of webbing, the circumference of your furled sail, plus a few inches on each end, and then you sew straight stitch in the center with the webbing folded in half, just enough room to allow a line to pass through the loop. Then you'll use this adjustable buckle. It's a double buckle that's included in the kit for a 1-inch webbing, and feed it through each end of the buckle, as shown here in the video. Once that's done, we want to secure the ends of the webbing. The webbing has been cut with a Hotknife so it will not unravel. We want to secure the length of webbing just by doing a double fold here, or a double hem, and then sewing in the center of that folded assembly with a few rows of straight stitches. Now we'll repeat that same procedure for the opposite end. Feed it through the buckle, create a double fold on the end of the webbing, sew some straight stitches in the center of the double fold, reversing a few times, and it's complete, ready for use. As you can see, when the tension's released, the webbing won't easily come through the buckle. That's what we're trying to accomplish by sewing the ends of the webbing. Just snap it onto your furled sail and then tighten the 2 lengths of webbing, and you're ready to secure your hatch canopy. If you don't have a furled sail, you'll attach the line to a forestay or the bowsprit. And now, as you can see in the video, all that's necessary to adjust the tensioning is to pull on this length of line, and then cinch it through the trailing edge of the mini rope tie, and it's locked in place. And the opposite ends of the line are attached to those webbing loops on the forward edge of the canopy. Now your canopy is complete. As we showed previously at the beginning of this video, all that's necessary to make adjustments to the scoop is to use the adjustable pull and the ball spring. Adjustments to the height of the hatch canopy can be made easily via that webbing strap if you have a furled sail. Just release the buckle, tighten up the webbing straps, then tighten up the line via the mini rope tie that is not included in the kit. If you don't have that, you'll just need to tie knots until you get the appropriate cinching of your canopy. That's all there is to the hatch canopy kit from Sailrite. Thanks for watching this video. Bye-bye.